everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in today. My name is Brittany Collins. I'm the Director of Education at Right the World, a nonprofit dedicated to closing opportunity gaps in literacy education worldwide. Since 2012, Right the World has serviced more than 120,000 teenagers and teachers from more than 125 countries, providing free access to meaningful literacy learning. An important part of our programming is connecting our audience, you all, with professional authors, which is why I'm so excited to introduce our special guest today. I'm joined by Jennifer Lewy, who will share insights into how educators can support students in using AI as a meaningful tool to supplement but not replace authentic creative writing. Jen is an acclaimed author of young adult science fiction, known for exploring the intersection of technology and humanity. Her debut novel, The One Game, a YA sci-fi adventure, won the Firebird Book Award for Young Adult Fiction in 2024. She continued the series with The One Exiled in 2023, and the third installment, The One Reborn, is set for release in 2025. With a background in psychology and social work, Jennifer has spent nearly 2 decades writing marketing content for healthcare technology firms. Residing in New England, she balances her writing career with parenting and entrepreneurship. She's passionate about expanding readers' perceptions and exploring AI's creative potential. You can connect with her at www.jenniferlewy.com or on Instagram at Jennifer Lewy Author, both of which are linked down below. Before we begin, I will also note that today's conversation complements Jen's recent student-facing blog post at Right the World, which is also linked below, in which she shares additional ideas and strategies that you can implement in the classroom. So with that, welcome, Jen, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Brittany, and it is really great to be talking about AI in education.
We're excited to have you. So to begin, I know that you have recently shared many innovative ideas with our teen audience about ways to use AI to both inform but also inspire their own authentic writing. And your advice is based on your own experiences as an author. So I'm hoping that we could begin by hearing first a little bit more about how you are using AI in your own creative process.
So I have been using AI in all of my creative processes, really from start to finish for several years now. And the reason that I do that is because it is so joyful and so supportive to me as an author. So I will bring in, and just to pause in the beginning here to define AI, there are so many applications, as we know, for AI in our world today, from facial recognition technology to Netflix algorithm recommendations. So when I say AI, what I'm talking about are the large language models like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini, all of which are very widely available to anyone with an internet connection or a smartphone, and mostly have free tiers available. One of my favorite ways to use AI is to help brainstorm the settings that I'm writing in. So if I'm having a scene that's taking place in a futuristic ocean vessel, for example, I love talking with ChatGPT to help me understand, what does that vessel look like? What does it feel like to walk inside that vessel? What does it sound like? What is the language that people would be using to describe the rooms and the navigation systems on board? And again, to underscore the way that I'm using AI in all of these applications is that I have an idea and I have a question. And what I'm using AI for is to expand on the creative possibility that I have in my mind, to help me be a better writer, to think about things more deeply. And I'm the one who's deciding. I'm the one who's setting the goal, the intention, and I'm using AI to assist me in that process.
I really
So,
appreciate, what you're saying about being in the driver's seat. I think that's what we really hope to empower young people to also do, is they still have agency, right? And we talk so much about world building in creative writing instruction and, teaching young people to to really create those immersive worlds on the page. So I love that you're pointing out how we can do that in an even better way, in an augmented way, perhaps through generative AI. Thank you for that.
Yeah, AI is like electricity, something that's incredibly powerful on its own, but only useful to humans in how we can harness it and direct it and guide it.
Hmm, that's powerful. And I know that you've shared that you identify as an AI positive writer, which is a term that I know really resonated with our team and with our audience when you shared that in your blog post. And you've said that to you, that term means seeing AI as a creative partner, like an enthusiastic writing assistant who's read a huge amount of material but needs guidance to stay on track. So I'm wondering, how can teachers and students sort of similarly embody that AI positive mindset in their learning environment?
I am AI positive because I see how powerful AI can be as an assistant to expand my creativity and support me as an author. And I fully acknowledge that being AI positive doesn't mean that AI is going to solve all of our problems or should be even brought into every single situation. There are real valid questions and concerns that we have, that we should be having as humans facing this incredible transformation in our society. So, being AI positive means that I'm also struggling with my own fears and my own uncertainties. And I think that as educators, as young people looking at AI, it's okay to be AI positive, AI hopeful, but also to have some uncertainty. And the important thing is that we're talking and that we're having conversations like this. Nobody knows what's going to happen with AI. We're at the beginning of this incredible transformation that's going to affect so many layers of society, and especially for young people facing a future with AI that's really going to impact the way they live their lives, the work opportunities that are available, the creative opportunities. So it is our responsibility, I feel, as adults, as mentors, as educators, to help students figure out how are they going to be navigating a world infiltrated with AI tools, and how are they going to be the creative directors of their own experiences. And I think that I'm very hopeful and positive about how we can help shape that for students and for young people.
I really appreciate that both and too of you can be AI positive, and AI positive doesn't mean sort of going blindly into the world of AI, that still having the sort of critical thinking skills, the analytical skills that we're so focused on, teaching in the classroom, that goes hand in hand with being AI positive, it sounds like, right? That we can't necessarily be AI positive unless we are also aware of the potential ethical concerns and what it means to be a responsible sort of digital citizen. So I appreciate that you're highlighting both of those things in this moment for us. And you are speaking to this already a little bit, but there are many ways to use AI beyond just, say, generating text for a writing assignment, which, of course, to that point about ethics, is usually the most sort of controversial use case, especially when we're thinking about sort of classroom context. You recently wrote about how young writers can use AI to support self-reflection as they develop their own writing style and writing identity. And so for our audience of teachers, I'm hoping that you can share how AI might support those more social emotional goals, like encouraging metacognition or making thinking and learning visible.
There are so many ways, as you just mentioned, to be thinking about AI tools. And again, we're talking about the large language models like ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini. And the interesting thing that I recently found out, and maybe you already know, is that there are no instruction manuals with these programs. So the developers themselves couldn't even figure out a way to explain how to use these tools. So we're only just beginning, I think, to understand the ways that these tools can be supportive and helpful in all different kinds of environments. And in education and in literacy in particular, I envision starting with three broad areas where I feel like AI can be supportive. And one of those is as a reflective partner. So I'm envisioning situations where students are either sharing writing or parts of their process with an AI tool and getting thoughtful and growth-oriented questions and reflection back to them from from a very personal and supportive standpoint. So helping students understand their own process and becoming more aware of their own learning. I think a second area where AI tools can be really exciting and powerful is in helping students track progress, to help them understand where they might be starting from a reading or writing goal, helping them to define clear and attainable goals to achieve, and then helping them to understand their progress towards that goal. And again, that can be incredibly personal and uplifting, and targeted for how different students learn and take in information in different ways. And the third area, and this is probably the most exciting for me because this has impacted me personally, is in building confidence around how we use text and language. And, that could come in many different formats. It could help students get past writing blocks, helping them to stay in the process, in the flow of writing, instead of getting caught up in doubt and concern. It can also look like helping students expand their thinking about a certain area or prompt different thought patterns or different ways of thinking about something. So we're just starting to understand there's so much to explore with these tools and so many ways we can bolster a student's path in education.
Thank you for that. That confidence piece feels so important. There are so many teens that just say, I'm just not a writer, and maybe have not felt inspired by the traditional sort of writing assignments that they've encountered throughout their schooling. And is there a way, that AI can sort of bring into the fold folks who may not have previously felt excited about or welcomed in writing instruction? I love that you're kind of bringing that question to the forefront for us. And of course, also highlighting the many other use cases, executive functioning skills. So many of us are eager to support those for ourselves as writers and also in our students. And so it's inspiring for me to hear, beyond just the actual text generation of writing, there are these many other ways to infuse AI into our own process. So thank you for that. And I'm wondering if you could share some genre-specific recommendations. So we've talked a bit about the writing process, the writing identity, but what genre-specific recommendations do you have for teachers who are looking to use AI to support their students? So for example, how might students and teachers use AI to support analytical writing versus more informative or explanatory writing, and then versus narrative or creative writing? Of course, these are the main buckets that are covered in Common Core state standards in the US.
That's a great question to ask ChatGPT. And that's one of the ways that I would like to encourage educators to start thinking about the different ways that you can use these tools, is to go to the tools themselves and to start a conversation. And if you've never worked with a tool like that before, you would go to openai.com. You would set up an account if you don't have one. And a question that I would recommend starting with is saying a little bit about who you are. I'm an educator. I teach whatever, grade level, ages, and I'm working on, and you can put in a project or a question that you have, and you ask the question, how can you help me? And what comes back might not be exactly correct or might not be interesting, but it's the beginning of a conversation. So that's a starting point for some people. If you've never worked with a tool before, it's a great way to start. Beyond that, in terms of the way I think about how AI could help in these different areas. So for analytical writing in particular, I think AI can be a brainstorming partner extraordinaire. So for, literary analysis or argumentative essays, AI can be a way to help students think about different ideas, expand on an idea, identify themes, suggest counter arguments, help a student maybe go back and forth about an argument they might not be clear about, or find patterns that they might have missed in their writing or with a symbol they might be writing about. So brainstorming, another area, particularly with informative or explanatory writing, is in organizing complex information. So AI can be very effective at helping students break down complex topics into subtopics to help arrange those topics in a way that makes sense, that thread together, and that are appropriate for the target audience that they're writing for. And to check to make sure that their writing is clear or at a certain reading level, for example. And a third way that I think for narrative and creative writing in particular, like we've been talking about, AI can be so supportive around expanding creativity. So again, in coming up with creative prompts, helping students brainstorm background, stories for their characters and generating all kinds of what if scenarios. I'm imagining interviewing characters in fiction or interviewing one's own characters or in a certain time period. What would a teenager have been, thinking about in a particular time period? So there's just all kinds of ways to expand creativity. And, like as we've been saying, the point is to help students see themselves as the director and to help use these tools while maintaining ownership of their work, see these tools like helpful assistants.
That interviewing idea feels so exciting and powerful. And it's just making me think about all of the productive work that doesn't maybe end up in the final product. Maybe that interview with a character never ends up showing up in any form in the actual work of fiction, for example, but deepens the writer's own understanding of their purpose, of their narrative, of the character. And so that sort of behind the scenes work, it also feels really powerful to think about AI in that and just engaging writers more deeply with their own projects.
Because it can be so fun.
Right.
And that you're right, it might not end up in the formal final project, but
Yeah.
it is just so motivating and so engaging and so fun.
Yeah. And we're not just here for the assignment, right? We're here for the fun. We're here for the process. We're here to ignite a love of writing and learning. And so that seems like the goal. And likewise for the teaching assistant. So I also am appreciating the prompt engineering advice that you're sharing with educators, right? Of how to frame a large language model like a teaching assistant. And can that also be some support for the behind the scenes work of instruction as well as of writing? So lots of good advice. In our blog interview, I know that you shared a number of compelling multimedia resources, so books, films that inspire your own sort of thinking about AI. And some of those are informative, explanatory, others are creative depictions of AI and related technology. So I'm wondering, what resources might you recommend to teachers who are looking to similarly engage students, not only in using, but thinking actively about AI?
Again, I would encourage individuals to use the tools themselves because that's one of the best ways to get a feel for what they're capable of, where they might not be as strong or productive and useful. And to understand, if we're going to be all part of this conversation, to understand what it is that we're talking about. I think because this is moving so quickly and there are so many questions and so many unknowns right now, it's difficult to feel like you have your hands around a topic or you fully understand something. I don't think that's the goal. So I think, first of all, use the tools themselves, but also give yourself some grace in just not knowing everything, because this is a very fast moving and evolving field. For larger context, I recommend two excellent books that helped me. One is Co-Intelligence by the business professor Ethan Malik, and the other is A World Without Work by Daniel Suskind. And both of those help frame this moment in time in terms of what we might be looking at now, but also in the future, especially as young people look ahead, how AI might be reshaping society in many fundamental ways. So for classroom discussions, I always like to recommend science fiction because I enjoy reading and writing science fiction. Films like Wall-E and the Matrix franchises, shows like Upload, and books like Feed by M.T. Anderson are all fantastic discussion starters around the future of technology and humans. There are also excellent educational resources like this organization, Right the World, and Common Sense Education, and many others that are looking at developing curricula around introducing AI in the classroom. And I would encourage you to connect with other educators, with peers, and to talk with students, to start conversations so we can acknowledge that we're all in this together. We don't know how to move forward, but we all are figuring it out together and understanding where we're comfortable experimenting, where we're maybe wanting to put some guidelines around and some clear policies in place. Encouraging conversation, I think, is really important as we're all just figuring this amazing new resource out together. And again, the goal is not to become an expert, but to connect with each other, to connect with students about how we can best use these tools to support learning, to expand possibilities for students, to engage students in literacy, in text and language, and really expand what's possible for us all.
That call to action to connect also feels so resonant because there are, of course, these fears, right? There's this discourse of what does AI mean for human connection, and the fact that you're encouraging us to, build relationships with colleagues, with students, with peers, to really think about this together is contrasting that. It's a call to be thought partners and to not, turn into the AI silo, but to use this as a tool for thought leadership and for innovation, which only happens through that connection. And love the resources too. I can see so many classroom discussions or writing prompts coming out of those, pairing something creative like Wally with with a Moloch text that's more informative, and using those two to spark some sort of discussion or writing seems like a really fun and also informative way to kind of invite teens into the conversation. So lots of fodder for our teacher audience in that advice. And I know that as a YA novelist, you of course have lots of expertise in speaking to a teen audience, right? That's your intended audience as a writer. And so in your experience, just zooming out a little bit from just AI, I'm wondering what you have found most engages young people in feeling excited about literacy overall.
I think educators know that what is engaging around literacy is not something that changes much over time. So to me, engaging young people in reading and writing is all about inviting them into stories that feel compelling, characters that feel relatable, and worlds that are immersive and exciting. And that's not going to change with AI, but how we teach that and how we convey those concepts might shift. And I, for one, am welcoming that shift because I think using a tool like ChatGPT in a literacy project can be so personally supportive to students, meeting them wherever they are, whether English is not their first language, or they have a disability, or they're coming from a place where they're just needing personal attention and support. And I think it's so exciting to think about how AI can be that support and be that assistance in so many different applications. And involving students in their own journeys and in their own discovery of what literacy can mean and what being a reader means and what being a storyteller means and conveying information. It's just so exciting to me to think about. So looking ahead, I know that AI is not going to replace learning. It's not going to replace educators. It's not going to replace adults who work with young people to help prepare them for society. And but I think that we are all looking at a future where we're up leveling what's possible for us in the classroom environment and outside of the classroom as well.
Up-leveling, what a wonderful word, and an optimistic word to kind of conclude our conversation today. There is such a need for instructional scaffolds, right? Teachers are always thinking about universal design. How do I meet the needs of all learners? Particularly when we know that in the United States, at least, which is where we're both located, there's such a lack of support resources. And so I love that we can think of AI as maybe adding to that toolbox and up-leveling our ability to build more accessible and equitable literacy instruction. So a beautiful sentiment and so much useful advice threaded throughout our conversation today. So thank you so much for being here, Jen, and anything else that you would like to share with our audience as we conclude?
Thank you, Brittany, and thank you to Right the World for having these kinds of conversations because, as you beautifully said, connecting and human learning is really the goal of this next evolution. And I think the more we can do that, the more we can explore where we're headed together, the more voices we can invite into this conversation, and the further we'll go. So thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And a reminder to viewers that we will have links to all of the resources mentioned, links to Jen's website, books, ways to connect in the text box below. So we encourage you to stay connected, to reach out, share how you are using AI in the classroom with your students, and we look forward to future conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.